This podcast is for general informational purposes only and represents the individual opinions of Dr. Dmitry Bick, Dr. Stefan de Graaf, Dr. Suzanne Mignon, and the guests. It does not constitute the practice of medicine or other professional healthcare services and should not be taken as medical advice or an establishment of standard of care. No guarantee is given regarding the accuracy of any statements and no doctor-patient relationship is formed. The content on this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions. Please don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe, but more importantly, leave a review on whatever platform you're listening on. Reviews not only help us grow listeners, but also help us grow as a show, improve our content, and make us better.
For those of you that listen to this show strictly for a female voice, or in situations where that female voice decides to be mean to me, my apologies today. Suzanne is not with us.
Well, somebody's happy. Look at you. Yeah. You have a grin like from left to right. Look at that. He's smiling.
Get made fun of today. Yeah, it's great. We have an open vacation policy at this podcast. It's basically, just whenever you don't want to be here, you just don't be here. But apparently, she's got a lot of important things to go on. And it's unfortunate because I wanted to ask her whether or not she was scared about halfway through the first quarter of the Dolphins game today and thought maybe this whole thing was just a charade of just fake. Maybe the Dolphins were just fake.
You mean the entire season? Oh no,
yeah,
it's crazy in there. Yeah, I mean it's fascinating. In the NFL, one game can change the narrative. Like if that lost the game, you could have said that, but now they're 5-1, and suddenly the narrative is we're doing so well, right? Like they haven't been 5-1 in so long.
Yeah, everything's fine. We scored 42 points. But the first two possessions, the first three possessions, Carolina went down and scored 2 touchdowns. And the Dolphins' first two possessions, they punted. I think for the first time the whole year that they've ever punted on the first two possessions. And in a row, and everybody I thought was going to lose their mind. It's like, oh, it's over. It was a nice run. We had 5 good games. This is who we really are. And then all of a sudden, like in a blink of an eye, it was 21-14.
Do you think that the weight flips so fast? Do you think it's a Tua effect or it's a McDaniels effect?
Tua had a coach before that, a person who will not be named, who decided that...
Come on, you can name him. He actually was a good defensive coach. Ironic.
To sue the league because he was fired, and now all of a sudden you got a new guy in there, and Tua looks like Dan Marino, a left-handed Dan Marino. So was it Tua or was it the coach? Or was it the fact that he got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle?
I think that's it.
Mostert and a Chain and all these speed guys.
I mean, their offense is off the hook.
Kevin Harlan said that they're a track team today. And I love listening to Kevin Harlan call games, but him calling Dolphins games is like the best joy I've had in a long time. He called them a track team. He's right. They're a track team.
Yeah, I heard that one. They're so fast.
Yeah, there's nothing. And the only thing that could stop him is like Tyreek Hill pulls a hamstring or gets cramps and he like just jogs out of bounds. And the Carolina defense.
I mean, knock on. Yeah. No, they're exciting. The running game is sick. The passing is sick. I just hope they can play some defense sometimes, because that's the worry. There's no guarantee There's no guarantee they'll win a game against a very good offensive team because it's like offense versus offense. That's what happened with the Bills. Was it the Bills that lost to?
The Bills, they lost by 4 touchdowns. Yeah.
Yeah. So exactly they need to be able to stop people.
We're going to find out next week because next week they go to Philadelphia. And I've been on record saying is Philadelphia doesn't deserve nice things. And the Eagles are the nicest thing that's happened to them in a long time.
They have nice things. They have Rocky Balboa.
Oh, they have nice
Oh,
things. I'm saying they don't deserve nice things.
Deserve them. Okay. Okay, I see what you mean.
These are the same people that booed Santa Claus. These people do not deserve nice things. But they have a very nice thing in the East.
Wait.
What? You don't know this?
Rewind. They boo Santa Claus? Come on, I don't know that one.
Really?
Well, enlighten me.
Your assignment after this podcast is to go on the internet and Google Philadelphia boos Santa Claus.
Well, I can do it live.
Pull that up because it happened. Well, I don't even remember how long it's been since they did that, but it was during a football game, during the Eagles game. They booed him and they threw snowballs at him. 1968. The Eagles were 2-11 and were slated to play the Minnesota Vikings after an immense amount of snow fell that day. So they booed Santa Claus. This is that city. And so I'm just saying, not that I'm like a huge Santa Claus guy, but like if you're gonna boo someone, I'd say Santa Claus is not the guy to boo because he's not real. Like, I don't know. Sorry, kids. Breaking news.
Hey, shh.
Breaking news. I know some people let their kids listen to this. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Dimitri's kidding. It does exist.
That's right. Santa Claus brings you presents on Christmas Day, except for Jews. It's Hanukkah Harry. For Jews.
So does the Tooth Fairy, by the way. That also exists. That's
right. The Tooth Fairy does exist too. But I didn't want to start with the Dolphins so much because Suzanne isn't here to give us her in-game, in-stadium analysis. So I wanted to bring up something else instead, which is sort of a add-on to our healthcare horror stat of the day, or stat of the week, which we're going to do later on. But I've got now a climate change horror story of the day, or story of the week. The headline from Science Alert is flesh-eating bacteria are on the rise in the U.S. Here's how to avoid them. I can see by the look on your face that you are very happy I brought this up.
Sure, I'm thrilled.
Right. So, necrotizing fasciitis.
This is the nastiest thing I've seen in medical school. If you guys haven't seen that in real life, you don't want to see it. You don't want to smell it. You don't want to see it. It's the nastiest thing I've seen in medical school.
Yeah. Well, the most common cause of that is group A strep. Strep aureus, I believe, is the most common cause of it. But this new bacteria that's causing it now is Vibrio vulnificus, which is, of course, something rolls right off the tongue, and you want to know so much about it. But the reason this is a climate change issue is because this particular bacteria is found usually in warm water.
Warm water, right.
Warm water. And also like seafood that's found in warm water. So sometimes it can be attached to that. But the reason that this is a global warming thing is because the seas are getting warmer, and northern oceans. Fake news. It's fake news. Fake news. There's no global warming. It's 50 degrees in Michigan. So the seas are getting warmer as we go higher in latitude now. So in the East Coast, New York, Connecticut, the seas are warmer. So this bacteria, which is usually hanging out in the tropics, is now moving up north. And that is completely related to global warming. So this is something now we can be scared of now. The new thing that we can be scared of. There's wars breaking out everywhere in the world. There's nuclear tension. There's COVID-19 is still a thing, even though it's not as much of a thing, but it's a thing. Flu season's coming up, and now you can also be scared. Bed bugs was a thing.
Bed bugs, right?
Yeah, I gotta be careful.
I think it's still a thing, right? Isn't you going?
Well, it's always a thing.
Yeah. But have you heard what's going on in Paris, in France?
No. What?
Paris that was in the news all last week. It's infested with bed bugs everywhere, in train station, parks, everywhere. It's a national crisis over there, and they got to get ready for they got to get ready for the Olympics, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if it's like that global warming. Yeah, I don't know if it's global warming or not, but that's wild. It's like the what is it? The seventh calamity.
Oh yeah. The what is it's from the Bible?
From the Bible, right? The is it seven?
It's...
The calamities? Yeah. There was, I forgot which one. I'm a terrible Catholic. I mean Christian, whatever it is. I think it's seven, right? There was the plagues. Yeah, there was a plague.
No, the plagues. There were 10 plagues. But what's the final book of the Bible? It's Revelations.
God.
Revelations.
Hopefully my mom's not listening to the show.
The 7 plagues. Yes. The final book of Revelations.
So is it what's going on?
From intense heat and drought, and it ends with like deadly hailstorms.
Is it what's going on?
I know there's like a bug thing.
There's a bug thing. Yeah. I thought was it crickets? I don't know. Yeah, they were eating the crops.
No. That's the 10 Commandments. I'm sorry, the plagues from the Old Testament and Moses. I'm talking about
from Moses, right?
Correct. The seven disasters.
Okay.
It was wars, plagues, and natural disasters. Pestilence, stinking sores. Yeah, this is all. Now all we need is Jesus to come down and save us all, but only people like you who are Christians, right?
So it was turning water into blood. There was the frogs. There was the second one. Lice and gnats.
Plagues. This is the plagues. Not
the Revelations. This is the 7th. It's the 7 plague. Oh yeah, you're right. The different book. The 7 plagues in the Bible was the 7th one. Yeah.
We're talking about Revelations. It's a completely different book, completely different religion, although it's similar. But
is it the same thing in Judaism?
There's no Revelations in Judaism. So the Old Testament ends, and then Jesus shows up and turns everyone into a Christian after coming back to life. And from then on, it's New Testament, which is the Christian Bible, which incorporates the Old Testament. So like the Christians do believe in, 6,000-year Earth and Adam and Eve and the 10 Commandments and all that stuff, but they take it into the new book. Why am I explaining this to you? You should know all.
I don't know. I used to know them when I was in school, when I was in high school, but what a shame.
Okay. Oh, boy. Sorry, Mama DeGraff, don't listen to this. Your son has fallen.
Don't, no. Yeah.
So now that we talked about the global warming crisis and how that's going to kill us all with flesh-eating bacteria, it's now time to do the healthcare horror stat of the week, because, of course, if you're going to have your flesh being eaten away by a bacteria, it's only fitting that you're going to do that in a place where the healthcare system is crumbling and falling apart.
America has the greatest healthcare in the world.
Deductibles, drug tiers, PAs, and copay. But you can get an MRI today for the low price of just $2,000. America, yay!
So the healthcare horror stat of the week today is a vial of insulin in Canada costs $32. Do you want to take a guess at how much that same vial of insulin, the same drug, the same quantity from the same manufacturer costs in the U.S.?
It's going to be a couple of $100.
$300.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. This is wild. And can somebody please explain why? Because it's capitalism? Because somebody's making money? I mean, why? Why?
I actually don't know. I have a bunch of speculation as to why, because the way to get it through the FDA is more costly, because in America there's more marketing costs.
So you're saying
because
the manufacturer have to price it higher because the cost of actually putting the drugs in the market is all too high. So meaning basically meaning the government is making it more expensive, not the manufacturer.
I honestly don't know the real reason for this.
Okay.
But this is not just insulin. Like, every drug costs more.
More in the US, yeah.
Lexapro, which is escitalopram.
It's generic now, right?
Here. Yeah, it's been generic since...
It's generic, right.
15 years or something like that. In America, you have to get a prescription for it. In Europe, it's sold over the counter. So is sertraline, Zoloft.
Right. Why? I don't know. People in Europe don't like to make money. I mean, I don't know. That's puzzling.
I would love to know what the antibiotic is to treat Vibrio vulnificans and how much that costs. Because if we're all going to get flesh-eating bacteria, we're going to need that antibiotic to not be super expensive. I'm
not going to get it because I'm not getting in the water. I don't know about you.
That's true. I'm not I'm a land animal. I'm not. But my kids and my wife really love the water and they like the beach. And I keep telling them that water is not your friend. Water hates you. Water wants to murder you in every way possible. And if you don't have any proof of that, there's tsunamis everywhere. There's sharks in the water that are eating people. They're just water is not your friend. You don't like water. It's not good for you.
We're not supposed to be in the water.
When you drink it, yeah. When you drink, clear, fresh water, that's fine. But you don't need to be bathing in it. Other than a shower. Like, you can have a shower, you can drink it. Other than that, water doesn't like you. Doesn't want you to live. And this is even more proof now that there's bacteria in it that's going to eat you alive. And because of America's healthcare system, the bag of antibiotics,
right?
Probably
as if you needed more, right?
Yeah.
As if you needed more argument for your point, right?
What is that really big time antibiotic that causes all those side effects? Ivermectin B or something like that? Ivermectin is antiparasitic. You're talking about vancomycin? No, it's something B.
Amphotericin?
Amphotericin.
Amphotericin, yeah.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, that, yeah.
We're doctors, by the way.
We don't prescribe antibiotics. I'm glad to say.
Yeah.
I'll put a consult for somebody to prescribe, I don't know, macrolides, I'll put a consult, no shame, because they consult me all the time for sadness. I got consult, patient looks sad. That's a consult. Patient looks sad. So I can play that game. I'll put a consult for. Right.
They live in Michigan, dude. Of course they're gonna be sad. No offense to the Michigan people that listen to our podcast, but I've lived in the Midwest. It's a sad place. I've lived in Ohio.
No, come on.
It's a sad place.
They get a bad rap. I don't think so. I mean, we'll get down there, in the sadness during the winter. I'm pretty sure with seasonal depression, but right now it's not that bad.
Yeah. Wait until the sun goes down at 3:00.
Yeah, I've heard.
You're gonna get a lot more consults for sadness. You can prescribe medication that costs, $300.
No, I just prescribe a light bulb.
A light bulb. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. There you go.
Seasonal affective
disorder. Treated with a light bulb. And a light bulb, how much in America? It's like what?
It's probably more expensive in America.
It's probably more expensive than Canada, right? That's complete speculation. But yeah, so like we can make fun of like how bad the prices here are, but it's actually a real problem. So I don't know. And the thing is, I don't know like how to fix it. Like, I've got ideas, but who wants to listen to me?
Yeah, nobody. I'm filling in for Suzanne.
I'm glad that you're here in her stead to be mean to me. Steph, how much hockey do you watch?
Very, very little. I got into hockey when I was in Florida, watching the Panthers. To be honest with you, I've gone to a few games, and you can get into hockey if you go enough, and if you have a team that you root for. Yeah.
So it sounds like not a lot. That's what it sounds like to me.
I can tell you that much. I don't watch it on TV.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Gotta be in the stadium, in the arena.
I got into hockey probably when I was 10, maybe earlier than that. And my first experience with hockey was I turned on ESPN because in the 80s, and here we go, we're going to lose all the children now. But in the 80s,
including me.
Steph is slogging off after during my stories, my old people stories. In the 80s, SportsCenter was on at 6 o'clock every night. Now, SportsCenter is still on at 6 o'clock every night, but at that time, SportsCenter was the CNN of sports. Like, it was a highlight show. It's not that anymore. I haven't watched the SportsCenter, honestly, from beginning to end in I don't even know how long. But the parts that I do watch, I can see that it's not what it was when I was addicted to it in the 80s and the 90s, when it was purely a news show. Came in there, you saw all the highlights, and they logged off to the next thing. Anyway, SportsCenter was on from 6 to 7, and it was one of those things that I watched religiously. And then there was a game of some kind on ESPN, depending on the time of year and what was available at that moment. So, in the winter and the early spring, you get basketball and hockey, so you'll get one game or another. And back then, hockey was not as popular as it is now, and it's not very popular now in the United States. But it wasn't on very often, and so I turned on ESPN. I don't remember when it was, 9:30 or something like that, when I had just gotten home from something, and a hockey game was on, and I'm like, cool, sports. Because sports was essentially my life as a child. And there was 2 minutes left in the third period. And I said, oh, good. I get to watch the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And then...
Was it hockey?
Yeah, it was hockey, right? It was a hockey game. And I'm like, oh, cool. I get to watch the fourth quarter. And of course, the period ended, and the graphics came up, because there wasn't that graphic that's always on the TV now, right, where it shows you the time and everything. It just, when the game ended or they're in breaks, they put the score up and the time. So the horn sounded, and everyone's going off the ice, and the graphic pops up, final. I know. And I'm like, final? It's only the third quarter. What's going on here?
You got shortchanged.
That was my introduction to hockey. Only has 3 periods because it's really hard to play and skate around for 4 quarters. They break it into 20 minutes, and I found that out the next time I watched the game, where I was like, I watched it from the beginning, and I'm like, there's intermission? What's an intermission? You mean halftime?
Halftime.
So yeah, there's 2 halftimes. So that's how I got into it. And one of the things that I remember about hockey is in the 90s, the LA Kings made it to the finals, and their head coach was Barry Melrose. And this dude had the most fantastic mullet. Just the most fantastic mullet. And he still does now. I shouldn't say he did. He still does now.
Impeccable hair. Yeah.
It's just the best. And, he didn't last very long with the Kings. I think they lost that Stanley Cup final. He didn't do very well the next 2 years. I think he was fired. And I don't think he coached after that, except maybe I think he had a short stint with the Lightning in the 2000s. But he was a hockey player back, when the 70s, I believe. Let me pull up his reference.
He played for LA too, right? I forgot we played for.
No, he didn't. He from the late 70s to the mid 80s. So he played 9 total years, 6 in the NHL and 3 in a minor league. Hockey
is he Canadian or American?
Association. It's a good question.
Is he Canadian?
He was born.
For some reason, I thought he was Canadian.
Saskatchewan. He's Canadian. Born in Saskatchewan.
He's Canadian. Okay.
Yeah. So he played with Winnipeg, Toronto, and Detroit. He was a defenseman. He didn't play a lot, and I don't want to rag on this guy because I like him a lot, but his plus minus for his career is minus 119, which is really bad, really bad. But we're not going to talk about his career in playing or coaching, but that he explained hockey to people like me who didn't know a lot. And when the Panthers showed up in 92, it was like, oh, now I'm going to watch hockey too. And I watched the Panthers and I needed to learn the game. Barry Melrose was on TV teaching hockey and he was really good at it. And he retired this week. And the reason that he retired was because he was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. And so his statement when he retired is, quote, "I've had over 50 extraordinary years playing, coaching, and analyzing the world's greatest game, hockey. It's now time to hang up my skates and focus on my health, my family, including my supportive wife, Cindy, and whatever comes next. I'm beyond grateful for my hockey career and to have called ESPN home for almost 30 years. Thanks for the incredible memories, and I'll be cheering for you from the stands." That was his statement when he retired. And you know that someone is really loved because literally not one bad thing was ever said about him.
Yeah.
Everybody had only good things to say. Now, people do that when people retire, but there's always a holdout here and there, like a Skip Bayless of the guy that retired. But nobody said anything bad about this guy, which tells you how much people really loved him in broadcasting. And I really like listening to him on analysis because I think he was really good at explaining the game. But this gives us an opportunity to discuss something that we haven't discussed yet in 23 episodes, is Parkinson's disease.
Right.
Because Parkinson's disease tends to be a quote unquote neurology issue.
Yeah. But it's funny you say, because people don't know that, but we psychiatrists, we do get our board also encompasses neurological issues, right? So ABPN is the American Board of Psychiatry and Neurology. And there's a slew of conditions that we see either in the hospital or in the outpatient setting that have conditions that have both neurological and psychiatric symptoms. So we do see a lot of neurological condition that present with psychiatric symptoms, or vice versa, of psychiatric condition that do present with neurological issues, either due to medications that we can talk about also in this episode, or either for any other issues caused by psychiatric illnesses. But you're right, we haven't now. Yeah, and you're right, we haven't talked about Parkinson, and we've had a few episodes purely psychiatric related that could be discussed in the context of Parkinson's disease, mainly depression. And people don't really know that, but depression sometimes is one of the first symptoms of Parkinson, ironically. So I guess before we go in detail, maybe I should give everybody like a little, a snippet of what Parkinson's disease is. I know it's one of the conditions that most people know about from seeing in TV or having a family member that has Parkinson. Most people think about tremors, right? So you actually mentioned earlier, Parkinson is what we call a neurodegenerative disease or disorder, meaning it progresses and worsens as you grow older, as the condition continues to affect the person, right? It gets worse with time. That's what that means, and it affects mostly area of the brain that produces dopamine, right? Dopaminergic neurons, and in that area of the brain, what we call the Suzanne Niagara, where if you do an MRI study, you could see where exactly there's a damage in the brain, right? And I'll do a parenthesis that when we discussed in a few episodes back, we discussed medication for schizophrenia and psychotic diseases, a condition. Those medication can affect that area of the brain, meaning blocking dopamine, and cause symptoms of Parkinson. So it's just exactly the same thing. As you lose the dopamine function in that area, either due to medication or due to a neurodegenerative disease, you present with symptoms of Parkinson. And besides the most common symptom, which is tremors, there's a lot of different symptoms that Parkinson comes with. And the tremor if you go into details, not all tremors, and that's good to know, because people that may have a family member with a tremor, they might have an idea or thinking about is Parkinson, but not all tremors are Parkinson disease. The tremor in Parkinson disease is what we call a pill rolling tremor at rest, meaning the person can be standing and not doing anything, and you see their hand besides the body shaking, right? Whereas other tremors could be just tremors when you move your hand or when you extend your hand to do some things, or different type of tremors. And most common one is essential tremor that necessarily is not something that you should worry about. Other symptoms that people don't really talk about, but is very prominent when you're in the medical field, is rigidity, right? The person with Parkinson's disease usually feel very rigid, and we can see that also as side effect from our medications. They have a very stiff posture, right? And then they have a akinetic gait, or I like to call it a stuck-on gait, where the feet feel like the sole is stuck to the ground, and they shift their gait. And that's what something they call the shifting gait pattern, right? Because they feel like, they don't feel like, they just literally cannot move, gracefully enough, and the body just like stiff. They also have what we call postural instability, where they have issue with balances, right? So they get up from a chair, and suddenly there are people who would comment that they cannot move their feet, and they feel like they're same stuck, but they feel like they're wobbly and they lose balance, and they can come with frequent falls. There's a bunch of different symptoms physically that you could see. But there's, like, if I want to make a caveat to psychiatric symptoms, they come with what we call the mask faces, meaning their facial expression are very blunt, and a lot of time it looks like depression. So it's not uncommon that people go to psychiatrists or the family think they're depressed, and what they really have is an onset of Parkinson's disease. There's also vitals instability. There's a lot of different conditions that you can have with Parkinson, but mostly it's, in the layman term, in the layman explanation, that's what you get when you have Parkinson, and it progresses with time.
Yeah, and you mentioned that the neurons involved are dopamine neurons, and for the people that are non-medical that listen to this, that hear dopamine, they think dopamine is the reward thing. The reward neurotransmitter. It's like when you release dopamine, you get really happy. So what I want to point out is that there's a lot of different dopamine systems in the body, a lot of different ones. Okay. And one of them happens to be the one that's involved in Parkinson's, which is the nigrostriatal dopamine pathway. That pathway is involved in purposeful movement. So when dopamine is released in that pathway, the downstream effect is you move limbs on purpose. Okay, so when that degenerates, you start to get the physical movement problems that you get with Parkinson's. Now, there's other dopamine pathways. For instance, there's a dopamine pathway, and I'm not going to get into the technical jargon of it, but there's a dopamine pathway that's involved in pleasure and euphoria. That's usually the one that gets hit when you take drugs. That's that pathway. Now, again, I want to point this out.
About the mesolimbic?
It's mesolimbic, yeah. That's right. Very good.
Okay.
Very good.
Hey,
Dr.
I just took my ABPN board, so I should know this kind of stuff.
Very good. 35% of our board exam is neurology. So yes, we do need to know these things.
Yeah.
And so but the thing about drugs is they're not smart enough to know that they're only supposed to go to one pathway. So they hit all of these pathways. So that's why with some drugs you get very happy and euphoric, but you also have weird movements and things like that. Another pathway is involved in thought, cognition, thought, focus, and that's the pathway generally that amphetamines work in for ADHD. Finally, you're going to get the
tuberoinfundibular. Yeah, that's where that's a lot of stuff to explain, but basically the tuberoinfundibular in the area of the pituitary, that's where you secrete of some hormones of the body, right? And the dopamine, what it does, it inhibit or stop the release of prolactin. So when you block the dopamine there, meaning there's no more dopamine to block the prolactin, you would have what we call an hypersecretion of prolactin. So people would have For example, in our profession, when we prescribe the medication, if I block the dopamine there, so one of the side effects our patient will get is more prolactin. And if you listen to the word, forget about science, if you listen to the word prolactin, and people know lactate, if you will, is milk, meaning it's a hormone that is pro milk, right? You don't need to go to medical school to understand that if you block what blocks prolactin, then you have more milk. Right.
That's an impressive mnemonic that I literally never considered in 20 years of medicine.
Yeah, lactate. So you can have male that are taking medication where the dopamine is blocked, like you mentioned, in all the different pathways. But one of the side effects that's not intended, it's not a desired effect, is that male will have increased, gynecological or breast tissue, and women would get, not only they will get the more secretion of milk, but also would have issue with the menstruation. So there's a few of different side effects that you can have. And
right. And
what we're talking about, the Parkinson is where we will focus on. I mentioned earlier, the medication blocking the dopamine there will cause basically Parkinson, right? But then we call it drug-induced Parkinson, meaning it's not necessarily neurodegenerative, meaning you can actually remove the medication and the symptoms reverses. Whereas in the disease itself, Parkinson, you cannot, it's not restorative. I mean, once you have Parkinson, you can only manage it. You can go back.
Great. And you're talking about antipsychotic medications that go into the body.
Antipsychotic, right.
Again, yeah, they're not smart enough to know they're only supposed to go into one area of the body. One pathway, right, so they hit all the pathways, including the movement pathway of dopamine, which can cause Parkinson-like symptoms. But they're not the same in that when you remove the medication, you go back to normal. But in Parkinson's, that's not the way that works. And the reason that we get consulted for this a lot is because of the psychiatric effects. You've mentioned depression once already, but psychosis is another one. We get consulted for that. And that's more of a later stage problem with Parkinson's, but we do get consulted for that. And the problem that you have managing that is that the treatment for psychosis makes Parkinson's worse.
Makes Parkinson's worse. Yeah.
So when I get patients coming in saying, my mom or my dad has Parkinson's and now they're hallucinating or now they're delusional or something like that. And it's like, well, we can do this, but there may be downstream effects.
Right. How many times you've had a patient, I'm sure you've had a patient that goes back and forth between you and your neurologist. You put a medication and the neurologist will say, you know what, your psychiatrist is causing your Parkinson. Meanwhile, you already know they have Parkinson. You're trying to control the psychosis.
Exactly.
And the patient goes back and forth. Yeah.
So the treatment for Parkinson's, for the movement issues, is to increase dopamine because dopamine is what's being degenerated in the brain in that pathway. So the treatment for is just to restore the dopamine, which is levodopa, carbidopa,
carbidopa, or Cinemet.
Cinemet, which is the brand name, Cinemet. And the side effect of Cinemet is psychosis.
Right. Because just like you said earlier, in the flip side, increasing dopamine will cause increased dopamine in different pathways, right?
Exactly, including the psychotic.
The psychotic one, yeah.
And that's the problem also with Parkinson's is the treatment for it can make the psychiatric part worse. And there are other dementia type disorders, for instance, that antipsychotics are not the best option, even though they're the option. For instance, Lewy body dementia, where you give an antipsychotic and that will cause significant muscle tension and lock up and some worsening of that stuff. So the problems with this disease is that one treatment causes another problem, and the solution for that treatment, the solution for that problem causes the opposite. Yeah. So there's this dance of how much antipsychotic and which antipsychotic do you give to someone who has Parkinson psychosis. And now finally there's a medication for hallucinations.
Lewy body? Are you talking about you're talking about
you need to know this. You're gonna fail.
Yeah, I know it. The name doesn't come ready.
What is the name? Without
Give me the
looking
first
it up.
letter. Give me the first letter.
Na, na, na. It's N. Na, 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 na,
New Placid.
na, na.
New Placid.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah, it's one of the new medication that you can prescribe and I think New Placid has to do with serotonin, not dopamine. That's why it's there's less side effect in negotiable pathway because the mechanism of action is actually on the serotonin. So that it's interesting. If you fact check me,
I'm going to fact check you. And
I'm pretty confident in my knowledge.
I'm not debating it at all. I honestly I don't know the mechanism because I very rarely prescribe this medication. But you may be right because there are serotonin pathways that increase and decrease dopamine. So some of the newer antipsychotics, for instance, like Rexulti and Vraylar, they hit certain serotonin pathways, and those serotonin pathways, and if I'm not mistaken, the pathway is 5-HT2A.
Yeah.
It will reduce psychosis if you block that receptor.
Yeah, it's a relay. It's like a relay mechanism. Down the road, down the let's say skeleton or the reactions, then it will decrease dopamine down the road. And New Placid, by the way, it's a brand name. The generic name it's pimavanserin. Right? I don't know if I'm saying right. Pimavanserin. And like you were saying, it's a non-dopaminergic antipsychotic. Yeah. And it targets, like I mentioned, it blocks the 5-HT2A receptors, which does play a role in neuropsychiatric condition like hallucination and psychosis and delusion and whatnot.
I should know these things without having to fact check myself, but
right. You're basically saying that 5-HT2A is pro-dopamine, meaning if you increase 5-HT2A action, down the road you would also increase dopamine action. So by blocking 5-HT2A, then you're possibly blocking dopamine as well, meaning blocking or decreasing psychosis. Earlier, we were talking about, just a caveat, we're talking about drugs, cocaine, and receptors and medication. And I always tell people that story. You have patients as well. I have patients as well. When we prescribe the medication, they'll tell you, doc, I don't like medication. I don't like to put stuff in my body. I don't like the way medication interact with my brain. Meanwhile, you're treating him for substance-induced psychosis. They do a bunch of cocaine and meth, and they do virtually this exact same thing. And I'm like, what do you think cocaine does to your brain, dude?
Yeah, I know. And don't get me started because I have the same issue with people that come in and say, I don't like to take chemicals. And I'm like, and they're taking herbs or marijuana or over the counter.
What do you think they
alternative
are?
And I'm like, dude, do you understand that literally everything is a chemical? Like food are chemicals. And so there's a little bit of frustration with some people that say they don't want to take these things when they're doing drugs or something like that, or they're smoking.
Right, but the cocaine is fine, right? Right.
Yeah, the marijuana that I'm smoking 6 times a day, every day, is perfectly fine. But I don't want the antipsychotic. Yeah, okay. And oh God, this could go real bad real quick with these kinds of stories that I've had.
We should make an episode with what patients say that we should debunk for purpose of not for to be trivial, but for purpose of education, educating the masses about what the common belief, the false belief that they have about medication and stuff they say that they don't know about.
That's actually
it's like a knowledge.
Idea. Yeah, fantastic.
We'll do an episode of that. Yeah, the most common false belief that a patient have. We'll do that one.
The most common fallacies, patient fallacies.
Yeah,
that's absolutely. That's may not be our next episode, but it's definitely going to be one of them. So anyway, we've gone off topic on Parkinson's, but I think we've done our job here in explaining what it is and how it's treated. Now, the neurologists, are going to be able to tell you a lot more than what we tell you because we see the psychiatric end of it. But we do work with neurologists to sort of play that game of too much Sinemet is going to cause the problem that I'm trying to fix with, Risperdal, for instance. but too much Risperdal is going to cause the problem that they're trying to fix with Cinemet. So we do have to keep in mind that, we need to kind of interact and speak to the other providers to kind of get that right. But otherwise, I think we did a pretty decent job of explaining it. Maybe not. Let us know in the comments if you think we did a terrible job of explaining it, but I think we did a good job. And, wish only the best for Barry Melrose because he's awesome.
Right. I was going to say, it's kind of impressive that he's been on TV this entire time. And the show he has on TV, he used to have the full body shot on Sports Center. He used to be standing. And then he was also on the table. And I would never noticed any movement disorders, right? So people, I was saying earlier, the first symptom is not necessarily tremors. The first symptom could be rigidity, could be balance issues, could be depression, could be what we call dyskinesia or akinesia, or hypokinesia, meaning you're moving slowly. And then when you do the studies, when you do the MRI, or even you can do a LP, which is a lumbar puncture, and you find some alpha subnuclein or different stuff that you can see in the liquid that you get from the brain, you can actually diagnose Parkinson. But it's not necessarily the tremors that is the first symptom. The tremors is pathognomonic, meaning once you have it, you have it. But Melrose maybe did not have the tremors before he found out. Maybe, I don't know. I'm speculating.
And on our way out here, we should point out that he was a hockey player, and hockey players are known to have repeated head traumas. Not as much as football players, but they do have that. And the question then becomes is, did his hockey history create this problem? And the answer is we don't really know.
Maybe.
Probably not.
Maybe.
But you don't know. And what I found in sort of looking into this is that sports-related head injuries don't necessarily convey a higher risk of Parkinson's, but there is a higher risk of young onset Parkinsonism or Parkinson's with repeated sports-related head trauma. But that's really the only link, and it's a tentative link.
Yeah, and the person I think about, right, and the person I think about, obviously, it's Muhammad Ali. That's where when I think about sports and Parkinson, I'm not saying, listen, I'm not saying that if Muhammad Ali never played, never boxed, he would never have had Parkinson. I don't know. Nobody could tell. Nobody knows. But he's one of the prominent figures in sports that developed Parkinson, and I think his what might have been at an early age too. Early age is defined before 50, right? So, it's YOPD, young onset Parkinson disease. It's before 50 years old, and Ali had his symptoms at 42.
There's no hard link between sports-related head trauma and Parkinson's. There is a link between people that have had head trauma, repeated head trauma in general. So it doesn't have to be sports or non-sports related. People get head trauma for other things besides football, accidents, car accidents, things like that. So the overall risk is higher with head trauma, with Parkinson's, and the risk is backwards, right? So when you have Parkinson's and you go back and look at their history, you'll notice that people that have Parkinson's had head trauma at a higher rate than people who did not have Parkinson's. So that's the tentative link, but there's no specific sports or non-sports other than young onset.
Well,
other than
that being said, we don't know yet. But that being said, studies have been. I guess people are making a lot of studies. There's a study I came upon. It was actually published this year. It's in JAMA. It's the Journal of what is it? JAMA is Journal of American Medicine Association, whatever it is. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then they studied NFL players with Parkinson, and what they found was that of the people that they studied, they did studies with closer to 730 or 730 players, NFL players, and they found that of those players, that's 88%. 88% reported being diagnosed with Parkinson's disease after they play football, right? So I'm not saying it's causative, or what the word is, but it's related. There's no causation, but there's definitely some relation.
Correlation.
Right?
Correlation.
There you go. There's correlation, but not necessarily causation. So the studies are ongoing, and I'm guessing, educated guess that there will be, I would say, in higher incidence of Parkinson's, because if you keep banging your brain, something's going to happen to your brain, right? I mean, you don't have to be a doctor or a scientist. If you keep hitting your hand against a wall or against somebody else, something might happen in that brain, right? I don't know. I mean, just common sense.
I mean, we did the CTE episode, so yeah, there's that. So yeah, so kids, don't bang your head against the wall. Did you ever do that as a kid, by the way? Bang your head against the wall? Just for fun?
Or against somebody else, yeah.
Against somebody else?
Or
I'm going to have to hear that story. No? I'm going to tell that story?
Who knows?
Okay.
Kids are clumsy.
So your mental health tip of the day today is, kids, don't bang your head against the wall. Mental health tip of the day, time to end our show.
Day full of hiccups? Need a shake-up? Listen up. It's the Psych Effect Podcast Mental Health Tip of the Day.
And it's not, by the way, hitting your head against the wall. It's not that. And
it's not.
Of course, the mental health tip of the day is brought to you by nobody again.
It's still not sponsored. Although if you guys follow us on social media, we did sponsor an event, right? It's ironic. We don't get sponsored, but we sponsor other people, right? I mean, that's life, I guess.
Because we're benevolent like that.
We don't necessarily need. Yeah. We don't necessarily. We just want people to be like us, right?
But
that's it.
I've had people tell me, we could sponsor the mental health tip of the day, and I see you people. We still don't have you as a sponsor, but I see through the computer. I can see you through your car radio, through your headphones. I know where you are. Anyway, Steph, enlighten us. Mental health tip.
So it's not going to be a offensive say or nothing like that. It's something I usually tell people when I see them in the office, or when I at the point of their discharge after a crisis, whatever it may be, bipolar mania or depression or schizophrenia, whatever it may be. When they're stable, I tell my patient all the time, make sure when they go back to the environment, right, to their family member, to their friends, I tell them, make sure that they reinforce those relationships. Make sure that they go back to the support system and nurture this relationship, because they don't know what kind of damage they've done to their relationship when they were on crisis. And why I say that is that the human being we're not made to be alone. We are made to be in society with people. So we are supposed to have a social circle, a support system around us. And what I tell my patients all the time is that the stronger your relationships are, the better support you'll get. So if you look at it as in terms of support, when you stable, make sure that your people are around you, because they'll help you stay stable. They'll help you stay out of crisis, because they'll be as much as you put into the relationship, they'll put the same back into the relationship. That means you have good friends, good family members, you have people that care about you, people that would tell you when something's wrong. They will see it. You also have somebody you can talk to. So it pours into a better lifestyle, better relationship with people. So again, not to be repetitive, but make sure that your relationships are strong so they can be part of your support system.
Excellent. So that's it for us this week. Follow us, like, subscribe. We're on Twitter. I'm still going to call it Twitter forever. We're on Instagram. We're on TikTok. We're on YouTube. And it's real easy to find us because it's all the same handle. It's at Psych Effect Pod. Follow us, like us, subscribe, leave a review. And, we'll see you in the next one. We are off next week because vacation policy, of course. But we will be back, hopefully, with Suzanne.
Yeah. Take care, guys.
The previous podcast is for general informational purposes only and represented the individual opinions of Dr. Dmitry Bick, Dr. Stefan de Graaf, Dr. Suzanne Mignon, and the guests. It does not constitute the practice of medicine or other professional healthcare services and should not be taken as medical advice or an establishment of standard of care. No guarantee is given regarding the accuracy of any statements and no doctor-patient relationship is formed. The content on this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions.